inspired. I want you to be inspired to start writing your books and be inspired to write not just books, but write for the cause of evangelism and equipping the church, discipleship, inspiring people to know Jesus and make him known. That's why this project author, the ministry division. Okay? And it doesn't have, any topic that you write can be written from a Christian perspective, leading a person closer to God, leading him to a decision to be closer to God, leading him or her in a decision to have a personal relationship. It can be any topic, and we'll show you how later. But that is my hope. It can be about money or business or about healing or whatever, and it can all dovetail into the most important message that man can ever know. Okay? Third one is to be confident enough to submit a book proposal. So, sinadya ko na, and we're so blessed later on, hahabol siya, si Ina Reyes from OMF will be here, and how I wish that she was here in the beginning so she could hear your pitches. It would have been so much better, but she came from an event because yesterday was her birthday. So later, Ardy, where are you? We will surprise Ina. I was saying happy birthday, Miriam. Can you ask them to order a birthday cake? So after she speaks, we will surprise her, okay? So that's Ina. Ina is the editorial director of OMF Lit, the biggest, if not the biggest publisher of Christian literature in the country, and the publisher of a majority of my books. I've written about 9, and I think 4 or 5 are by OMF. So you have a chance. That's why did you get in the Viber group, did you get the book proposal form? Yeah. I said, those of you who are not in Viber, don't worry, we'll email that to you. But throughout this course or this session, we'll go through questions. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. Questions that a publisher would ask of you. So this is like preparation for that. Right? So I want you to be confident enough to submit that book proposal to OMF or CSM. I also invited CSM, so I'm not paying favoritism, but Abner Lacson, the CEO of CSM, couldn't make it because they have their own training going on in CSM. But hopefully, God willing, we'll find out after this session if there are enough people who are really serious about pursuing. We'll have more sessions of this. I planned actually 3 sessions. The original project author we had a launch event where people who were sitting on the fence were invited. And after that, we had a mentoring series. We had like 10 sessions. I won't do that anymore. We'll probably have like 3 or 4. But this is just to really jumpstart you, okay? And lastly, know what it takes to have a disciplined author mindset, because talking about writing and writing is different. You can talk about the book you're gonna write and talk about it to death, but you're never gonna get published. So we're gonna talk about that, okay? So we want you to have an author mindset and disciplined mindset, all right? You share your story, I'll share a little about me in a couple of minutes. I started writing as a magazine editorial assistant / writer / assistant to the editor, Nakilang Alalay, etc. So straight out of college, before going to law school, I was accepted in Ateneo Law School. But I said, I want to pursue my dream first. I'll write for a couple of years and then go to law school. So I went to Metro Magazine when they were still not a fashion magazine, but a city magazine. So I would write about cars, and I would write about what do you call this, sports, this is dragon boat racing. So honestly, when I applied in Metro Magazine, the late Larry Cruz interviewed me. I originally applied for a marketing position in his restaurant chain. But he said, you know what, I think you'd be better in this new magazine that I'm starting up. And he didn't even ask me if I could write. I'd never written before that. So I got my first assignment. The editors didn't know that I'd never written anything before. And I was so nervous. And I said, I wasn't a Christian there, but I think I said, where God, wherever you are, help me, naman. And I just got wisdom that, you know what, you know how to write because you've been writing letters. And I said, okay, I had a long distance relationship. This was a time when there was no text, internet, email, or Skype or anything. So I was having this long distance relationship by writing love letters to my girlfriend was in the States. So every week we would write 3, 4 letters a week.
Wow.
And, so I said, okay, I'll write this article as if I'm writing a letter to the reader. So I started by saying, dear Jessica, and when it's a minute art, I just put out the dear, and that was the article. And ever since then, that has been my style of writing. It's been very personal, conversational, as if I'm writing a letter to someone. And if you look at many of the books in the Bible, it's really a letter. A letter to the Philippians, a letter to the Ephesians, a letter to Colossians, etc., etc. So that's an insight that I had. God prepared me to write larger works of books, of writings through my experience in writing for Metro Magazine. And along the way, I got sidetracked and I started asking myself, I also want to be rich, not just a writer. Rich and writer do not go together. And so I said, I want to be rich. And I read this book called My Neighbor's Wife. It's not biblical, so don't look for it. This is the title. But it's the story, it's the biography of Hugh Hefner, the founder of Playboy magazine. And I got so inspired in the wrong way. And I said, I want to be like Hugh Hefner. And so that was my ambition, to be the next Playboy publisher of the Philippines. So my ambition, I worked hard in the magazine industry, worked for an international magazine after Metro, got sent to Frankfurt Book Fair, got sent to Singapore, Hong Kong, and finally got sent to Stanford. I went to the Stanford professional publishing course, and I saw the trend that was coming, which was licensing of magazine titles. So this was before, and this is why after that, Osmo had Philippine Edition, with housekeeping, and all these. So I said, I'm not going to bring all those titles, I will bring Playboy. But how many of you know that many are the plans, and the man's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose. That it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. And the Lord's purpose prevailed. He smashed that plan, took me out of that dark, sinister plan, saved me from that plan, and basically took me out of that dark plan and said, "Waka dyan." And from Playboy publisher, I became a Playboy kind of guy. And I was the guy before. It's funny how God works. I'm shortcutting this, but it's funny how God works, because when I was at Playboy wannabe, I go to Greenbelt in the mall, Greenbelt 1, and then I see a group of Christians. I knew they were Christians because I saw this guy, I saw him in this program. 700 Club yun, na ini-interview siya. Yung lead singer ng Side A dati. So he said, and I said, son of being born again. And I would tell people who come to me, like my best friend became a born again Christian, and he was sharing with me the gospel. I said, okay, you're born again, that's good for you, but I'm born against. So, this group of Christians, as I said, I see them in Greenbelt. Instead of eating in the food court, I would go to Pancake House just to avoid them. But pagkabas ko ng Pancake House, nandun yung leader, and he had this tract, and he was approaching me. He said, "Hi, I'm a Christian," and then gave me the tract, and I would go like that. "Hi, I'm busy," and I would run away.
Wow.
And so God, in His most humorous self, burdened me to write a gospel tract.
Wow.
And this gospel tract, Buhay na Hindi Bitin, started as a letter. When I became a Christian, I started writing letters to my parents, my sisters, my college buddies about the greatest discovery, greater than the cure for cancer. And that's that letter, 8-page letter, became this booklet called Buhay na Hindi Bitin, which I self-published. And later on, CSM rejected it, and OMF picked it up, and it became their #1 bestseller for the last 200 years or something like that. So praise God, God has a purpose. God has a purpose. And after that, in writing books, one book that I wrote, The Heart of Healing, that was my first book. As many of you know, Mikey, Andrea, who know me before my great love now, I also had another great love. And this is the story of my first great love, the story of Ting Ting, and her healing at that time, and our love story. So then I wrote Buhay na Hindi Bitin, one day I came back from Kenya from a writers conference, and I got this parasitic infection. So one night I couldn't sleep, and because the parasites were partying at 2 a.m. in the morning, and I was just scratching. I knew how Job felt. You know, I was scratching my back on a poste, going like that. It was really, and then blood started. You know, it was really bad. So I said, Lord, you know, I can't sleep. What do we do? And I saw my book, Buhay ng Dipiti, lying on the table. And then I was scratching, and then this thought just came in my mind. Di ba sabi nila, pag nalalating palan, ibig sabihin, pera. I don't believe in that, of course, that's, you know, all times tales. Pero, pera, buhay, write about pera na hindi bigyan. And write about the lessons of how God, by following God's commandments, when I became a Christian pala, yung pala kong maging very publisher, God took me out of that plan by bankrupting me. He took away all my money by when I produced a Gary Vee concert, and nalugi siya, and I was wiped out, and so yun. But I was bankrupt and in debt, but the only thing I did was I followed God's principles on finance, and God turned around my finances. The finances He entrusted me in this year. So yun. So that book, Pero Hindi Bitin, also became a #1 bestseller in the secular market for like 5 months. You shared your story, and your stories, God has placed that in your heart for a reason. I ask you why you're here, and thank you for sharing. I believe that God has a purpose. Many of you traveled far. There are some people who said, ang layo naman, but they only live like in Pasig. So usually it's not that time for them. But God has placed this urgency maybe for you to set aside this time to be here, and for a reason. I think it's a big reason. I mentioned why I'm doing Project Author, and I think really if it's a burden, it must be an assignment from the Lord. Right? If God is giving you a burden to write a story, it must be an assignment from the Lord as well. That's my belief. And I'm here to help ease that burden and see that burden into fruition. And I think there's also an urgent need for quality Christian books written by Filipino Christians with a Filipino impact. I'm not saying that it can be international. Jeff, you're here, you're like Filipino. Your experience here, Jeff is like an evangelist. I met him through a common friend who went to Haggai, or some sponsor, and he's an amazing work here. And I encourage him to really just write those experiences in a book. Because those experiences, what happens when you die, not if you die, but when you die, sayang, it will be documented for your children, your grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. You know how it is, if it's just verbal or oral, maybe it's get lost. So many people have answered the call, and these are the forerunners of people like Grace Chong, who inspired me even before I became a full-fledged writer. Grace Chong, I invited her in the previous editions. I'll invite her again for those of you who will join the mentoring class. But Grace Chong is such a prolific writer. She's a Palanca awardee. She's like in the Hall of Famer na pinagbawal na nga siyang sumali ulit na Palanca. She's won everything already. But her book, her simple book, Gifts of Grace, it's really just a collection of stories that she tells about everyday life. And approach ni Grace Chong, sabi niya sa akin, she used to work in an agency full-time. Sabi niya, you know what, I approach writing as a full-time work. So I get up in the morning, I go to the office, I dress up, and I sit down at my desk, and I write for 8 hours. Because she's retired, and she says, this is my job. God has placed this burden and this ministry upon me. So many times I say, we view writing as a hobby, something pathetic now. I know many of you are in full-time businesses or jobs, but if we treat writing in that mindset that is important. And I'll teach you later how to calendarize or set appointments with yourself and really treat those appointments as sacred. And that's what Grace does. She treats her appointments, her daily schedule with sacredness. So she's also done children's books. Okay. Francis Cole, before he became my business partner, I was inspired and I would see his works in National Bookstore. So he's a forerunner as well. And all he does is he's disciplined because he writes column. Well, before that, I encouraged him to write a column, but he would have his transcripts from his radio show. And he would put them together and publish them. You know, self-published si Francis Cole, because he has a big platform. And I'll also discuss the difference between or the advantages of self-publishing versus publishing yourself. Chinkitani is someone who also came to me and asked for help and gave him advice. And so he decided to self-publish as well. A book that he wrote, one of the first books, Rich God, Poor God, very good book. Till death do us part. So, and there are others, si Rex Concepcion, si Maloy Salupides, and lately si Andy Roberto'S. When they actually started, I sent him an email. I said, Dr. Andrew, would you like, I'm writing a book called Pera na Hindi Bitin, and can I borrow or can I publish in one of my chapters your How to Get Out of Debt-Free Lifestyle? Tapos sabi niya, okay, no, you know what? Why don't you write a book with me? You're ashamed. Isip niya, I don't know. Okay, but so hindi ko nagamit yung portion niya in Pera na Hindi Bitin because ay pala, God was already stirring his heart to publish. So, make a long story short, hindi kami nagkatuloy maging co-author. He got a writer. Okay, you can be an author without writing a book. You can get a writer to write it for you, but you're the author because the outline and the ideas are yours. And that's what Dr. Andrew did. That's why there's another picture here. This is the writer. He is the author, she is the writer. A friend of mine, Dodo Pacanando, wrote Breaking Through and Keeper's Garden about his life experience as a former HP executive, went to Bukidnon, started a farming business. So as you see, God is launching a new generation of Filipino writers to send contextualized messages. Kasi dati, puro American, di ba? We translated, we don't even have to translate it. And we read about experiences in the American context. But I believe that God is raising a new generation of writers to minister to a new generation of Filipino readers. Okay? And also a product of Project Author, Brandon Pyongson. He attended one Project Author and he says he credits Project Author for launching his writing career. He says he's not a writer, and so it's just discipline. So yun, naging industry na yung nila. Like si Jason Law also attended Project Author, and it helped him launch his series of books called Unique. And he also credits Project Author, of course, credits the Lord for using Project Author to help him launch his career in writing. And his writing, these books, has become a platform for him. The Unique book became a unique experience or training experience. Okay? Dennis C. was also there, Project Author. So ang sinasabi ko sa mga pastor or those who are here, scholars, sabi ko, okay, attend Project Author. Sige, I'll sponsor you. No problem. But you have to include Project Author in the acknowledgements. Okay, and give me a copy of the book. Okay?
Sure.
Yes, we can praise the Lord for that. So ito yung katas or yung fruit of that ministry that we started. And so after that, he had this book. So napapadala naman. So natutuwa ko dito kasi it just shows that pastors get a great sense too. Okay. Okay. Another student of mine.
Yes.
She's told her story. But this is a session that we had And project authored again dream class. So I got 12 students, and then one of the last classes we go to Tagaytay for retreat. We spent 2 nights there, and then we dinidikdik ko sila. This is a session where I had Miriam write out the book proposal to OMF. She sent it that night. The next day it was accepted, but she took so long to write it, so the next year it was scrapped and someone else took it. So anyway, that is faithful. And this book became, she's too humble to say, but it became a bestseller also in National Bookstore. And the number 1 bestseller of CSM. Kaya asawa kasi dami binibig eh. My Instagram wife.
That's the title of a book. My Instagram wife.
May title ba lang?
Maganda daw yan.
Maganda title yun.
Yeah.
Wala tuloy ako.
Instagram wife.
Singit lang yun. Nilalamig ba kayo?
Hindi naman.
Pwedeng kuya pakiyan. Inaanan ko. Ayun, tapos si Ron Monisa, his books are a phenomenon. His Love Struck series is now an industry in itself. I say industry, but it's more of a ministry. So he has a Love Struck movement, and he ministers to young people. Same thing we have seen, keeping pure, preparing themselves, pag mo sila mag-love struck, but it's the young, etc. But ang galing ng his use of language, he really connects with the youth. And so it's a whole industry. And it's become bestsellers as well. There was a time in the Philippines, there was no Filipino Christian author in the bestseller list. And one day, right before launching Pera na Hindi Bitin, I remember just laying my hands on the bestseller list in National Bookstore and I said, Lord, may a Filipino Christian author be in this bestseller list so that, so people will know you, hindi puro stupid is forever. And, all these other crazy quotes na, it's like, Lord, sige na, please, may a new generation of authors, Christian authors, be in this bestseller list. And Lord, kung isasali mo ko doon, tatanggapin ko rin yun.
Amen.
But keep me humble. So, and yun, you know what? And lo and behold, when Pera na Hindi Bitin was launched, the next month it was number 5 on the bestseller list. And then the month after that it was number 1 for the next 5 months. The first Filipino Christian author, and then that opened, I think, and encouraged a lot of people. So sumunod na si Marlene Munar. Ito, maganda rin yung story niya about this book and how she pursued it. But it also became a bestseller. Let's see. Kilala niyo ito?
Pastor Umani. Pastor Umani.
Yeah. Si Pastor Joey Umani. So right now he's on the bestseller list also. Number 10 or 9, Unlimited Rice. Maganda na title. Unli Rice. Usually called Unli Rice. So yun, yung Pera na Hindi Bitin na lumabas. It was promoted by OMF. That's favor lang yun because I just happened to go to National Bookstore for another reason and got to talk to the merchandisers and told them about my book. And the next week, my book was on display na in the center. And that helped a lot. And nagsaan orders and in the I think in the Philippines, bestseller ka, if you sell about 15,000 books, copies, you're a bestseller. But grabe si Lord, this book, right now, I think it's counting, it's almost maybe like 350,000 copies already. In the first maybe 4, 5 months, 6 months, it sold about maybe 80, almost 100,000 copies. So, phenomenal talaga. And I really thank God for my mother who bought 99,990. So, 10 lang actually bumili. Nanay ko yung bumili. Pero, I'm just kidding. But I gave my mom free books. But it was really, it's really Not because of my galing. It was really the Lord's inspiration, the Lord, that I believe that prayer that God honored. And tapos yung sumunod ni Wilman Arbogi, naging number 5, which has a bestseller list. Problema lang pa rin yung the system is that naging bestseller, maubos na stock, mabagal mag-replenish ng national. Next month, wala na siya. So, Wilman Arbogi came out, and then there's an English edition, and naging cottage industry din to, so many invitations. We had a Pogi Summit that followed. We invited Hayden Ko, so that was his first speaking engagement. Naglabas na siya na born-again Christian na siya. We invited him to speak. So nagkaroon ng movement ng mga Pogi. And so many letters from people. And yun. Pero ito yung downside. Because of that movement, nagreklamo, this is real, there's a movement formed by one group ng mga pangit who said, kailangan mabawasan ang pogi sa Pilipinas.
Oh boy.
So, mga pogi na dito, ingat mo na. Kasi hindi lang ngayon drug pusher ang pinapatay, mga pogi. So kung pogi ka, tapos drug dealer ka pa, double din. So praise God. And then Malu also came up with her own book. We have said dapat may counterpart yung pogi. Eh, bago kasi ninyo niya, siya dapat eh. Real women are hot. Dapat holy, obedient, and trusting to God. But it's coming up. So, nangyari, nag-forward na lang siya. So, part pa rin ang libag niyo. Okay? So, my burden is to help set yourself up to be able to write that book that God has placed in your heart. And thank you for sharing that in your heart. Okay? 7, what does that number represent? It's the 7. I'm the kind of guy, if I come up with 5, it has to be 7. It was originally 6, but I don't like 6, so I made it 7. 7 things you need to do and become to be an author. An author for the Lord, dedicated to the Lord. So here we go. Okay? This is the outline of what we're going to do today. And if you're taking down notes, that would be good. Benjamin Franklin said, the dullest pencil is better than the sharpest knife. The dullest, ang pinakamapurol na lapis ay mas mabuti pa sa pinakamatalas na memory card. Okay, so what does that mean? Simply says, make notes, take notes. So discover your why. I want you not to just take notes. I want you to make notes. You don't have to copy everything. Taking notes is copying everything. That's the whole time in school to take notes. I want you to make notes. Just make notes. Take down things that impact you. Okay, that's okay. That I want to remember that. Okay, so you don't have to take down everything because I will send you a PDF file on this. Okay, so I want you to listen and just make notes. All right. Is that good?
Yeah.
So discover your why. Remember in journalism class, what did we discover in journalism class? So my outline is based on our journalism 101. You remember, Karen, in journalism class? When you write a piece, what do you have to cover? The W's,
The
four W's, and
The why.
Okay, so what are those? It's your why. So discover your why, who, what, when, where, and then how. That's what we're going to do today. Determine your who. Whom will you write for?